Louisa, how are you doing?
I am good, thanks.
It's good. It's good. So, good morning, listeners, and what people who are watching. Um, Today, Louisa Jolanda Mackay is joining us to speak to us about her journey regarding depression. She is a wife, a mother, and a writer and a poetess. Am I correct? And I say that. Um,
That's a mouthful.
she is also my cousin's wife. So she is part of our family and very proud to have her as part of our family. So,
I'm
uh,
happy.
Louisa, can you just tell us a little bit more about yourself in terms of where you come from, and also tell us a little bit more about your writing and your poems that you are doing, and where the people can actually find some of your stuff?
Okay, well, like you say, I go by poetess, but that's right to author. I have been writing poetry for 18 years, since the age of 16, so you can work out my age. But and I actually grew up in the Vaal Triangle, which is like a little bit in the Free State, a little bit Gauteng, but I lived there mostly my entire life, I would say, my upbringing. And now the last 4 years, yay, I'm living in Cape Town. I'm loving Cape Town. And I'm married, like you said, to your cousin, the handsome one, Caleb. And we have a son, Raphael, who's 2 years old and keeping me busy. But yeah,
So,
my writing journey, like I said, has been 18 years with poetry, but I also do blogging, and I have a blog that is called Luminous Bloodline. I also have my own website, louisajolanda.com. So if you go there, it will have all the links of my social media and everything that you will find me. And then I'm on YouTube now. Recently joined YouTube. So yeah.
so, I have seen your YouTube video, and what I really enjoyed about your YouTube video was that you were very transparent and really, became, how do they say, you made yourself very vulnerable in terms of your journey with depression. And so I watched it, and I was really touched by your YouTube video, and I just thought, let me ask you just to come and speak with me on Skype so that we can, get to know more about your journey and what you experienced. So yeah, I'm going to start with a couple of questions, and then you can just answer as your heart leads and as much as you can. Okay. So, what the first question is, can you tell us a little bit about your journey in terms of when it started, and um, and what sort of triggered the depression at the time?
Um, it started when I was really thinking back the other day. I would say my late teens, beginning 20s. That is this time it started. But I would say it kind of was a building up towards it because, like I said, I think in my video or in one of my videos that depression isn't an overnight thing. So I think it was little things that built up to it. And I think for me at the core, you asked me what triggered it, but I would say the core was that what I didn't know my identity.
Mm-hmm.
It was identity thing, which like if I didn't think of my voice that it has value, that I could speak up. I was afraid of a lot of things. So I was afraid of speaking up. I was afraid of confronting things like just having even like this conversation I would never do because I was just so afraid. Like, am I going to say the right thing, the wrong thing? Am I going to hurt people? People are going to be upset with me. So I would say the things that triggered it is because I suppressed all the things maybe that I wanted to say, not maybe, it's the things that I wanted to say and I couldn't say was actually being suppressed, and that always like would trigger it if I maybe have encounters with certain people or experiences that makes me feel like I don't agree with this or this feels so hypocritical or whatever, but I didn't feel like I'm just I have the voice that I could say it, that I had the power to say something. So my depression definitely was because I suppressed my voice because that's how it started becoming better once I
Mm-hmm.
started speaking up. Now, when it started, like I shared in my video about it, is that it started, like I said, my late teens when I was in a relationship that the person wasn't bad to me or mean or anything. It was a very good, kind person, but it was just not right. I wasn't supposed to be with this person, obviously, because who did I marry? um, so, but once I made that decision, it was just like I say, like the pivotal point of other things of suppressing. And then once I said to the person, sorry, this is not the right relationship to be in for me. I'm sorry. I have to, it did bring a release to the depression, but then obviously that triggered it. That then after that, it was like I would say I struggle with it maybe once, twice a year. I can't remember the time periods of it or stuff like that, but it would come. I'll struggle for a few weeks, a few months. I don't actually know because I don't think you really keep track once
Mm.
you're depressed, like of time you don't know. So it was on and off or come and go with even sometimes with seasons. I don't
Um,
know why, but when it became autumn and the air starts changing and things, it did stuff to me. And so I would say the worst times were autumn, winter times.
okay, so I just want to know, being in that depression is really hard, but how did you overcome that time in your life? How did you go through it? How did you survive through it? Yeah, if you can just share a little bit more about that.
It's interesting you use the word surviving because I actually was thinking that exact word because that's what it is initially. So I would say I first suppressed it. I didn't want to deal with it because obviously if you don't want to confront things, So I suppressed it by reading books and getting lost in books, watching stuff. And actually at the end of the day getting lost in like a fantasy world I built in my head, and that sounds so funny but it is just the truth. And as a writer that is an awesome place to be if you can really create this. And I was creating the scenarios in my head of like that I'm living this other life that I felt was better, that I was in a place that I could do the things that maybe I couldn't do in real life. So I was actually more withdrawing myself from reality into that. So that was like you say, the surviving time. But it obviously didn't deal with the issue. There was no healing, no getting better. The only time, the time I started getting breakthrough was because God sent the right people, and He sent specifically one that started it. And I know we might talk about it again, but Malate Els, she was the first person I ever went to talk to about depression, and I was very hesitant about it because I didn't trust anybody. I mean, like I didn't trust myself, so how would I trust anybody else? But from the first moment that I met her, she was just God knew the kind of person I needed to talk to, and she asked the right questions that went deeper. And that was in 2010. That 2010 was when I started realizing I don't have to feel like this anymore. I don't have to accept it as it's my destiny to be a depressed person for the rest of my life, because that made me feel like Dave is better. Because if this is how I'm going to feel for the rest of my life, this is not the life I want to live. So then she started going deeper into things that I never would have thought of, asking questions that about your past and your family and everything, and even like your grandparents and all the dynamics of it, because all of it impacts you. And we might want to not talk about these things because there's a lot of hurts and things in people. But really, when she started asking that, it's almost like every time I went to her, but from the first time, every time I left, and I wasn't by a lot of times, maybe once a week or once every 2 weeks for a few months, but every time I would leave with this almost like there's a light bulb that just went on, and I'm like, and that started lifting it. The depression doesn't mean I didn't immediately conquer it, because it took time. Because obviously these things were so rooted in me that I didn't realize, because of all these things that happened, that I was actually making these choices and these things and accepting things into my life as truth that wasn't truth, and accepting it as it's me, but it was actually not even close to who I am. So yeah, she definitely was a start. And then after that, I would say it started getting better. I started having hope. I still struggled for a few years with it, but it wasn't to a very low point then.
Well, that's good to know. So Malit was actually a psychologist.
Yes, she's a social worker,
So
but she studied also. So I'm not 100% sure, but I think she like, it's not a psychologist in that sense. She was a social worker, and she still does actually work with social work. And she even has also her own Facebook and stuff of helping people who can't even afford counseling, because she's really a artist about it. And she's such a, the thing is, it's about finding somebody you can trust. And she's somebody I will recommend to anybody you can trust with your deepest, darkest secrets.
And
Yeah, it's a soul connection thing with her.
okay, she's in the Free State, right? In the
Yes,
Ball
Sassel. She's in
area.
Sasselberg.
Okay, Saxelberg. Okay.
Yeah.
So people you can go to, huh? To Malete if you need some help, and
Yeah, really
sounds
nice.
really good.
She's
Yeah.
amazing.
So you know what? One of the things I have seen and witnessed was that when people are struggling with mental health, there's a stigma attached, and so when you are known, okay, I have depression or I have bipolar or something in that regard, you feel embarrassed. You feel like the people should not know, um, and it becomes you become like an outcast in some ways. How did you feel when you were diagnosed with depression, and did you feel like an outcast, or was that okay for you? You just knew you needed to kind of work through it. What was your feeling at that time?
Um, for me, at first, I would say it was a relief to put a word to the feelings that I was feeling, because otherwise it's just confusion. So when I could put a word to it, there wasn't any embarrassment to it at first. And I actually grew up very like safe and protected. So I wasn't surrounded by people that could really tease me or actually make it a mock thing. So I don't think I ever were embarrassed about it. I wasn't an outcast because of it. I didn't experience that. I would say, however, that if I did feel like outcast, is because I isolated myself, because my depression, I withdrew from social activities because I felt like people I almost not understand, or I'm too desperate to be around and too negative and a burden. So I didn't want to be around people. I mean, I wanted to, but I withdrew. So I wouldn't say I ever experienced that people put stuff on me that made me feel like that. Now, the other thing is that shared in my videos, that shame was a thing. And I think that is the thing that when you were talking about the stigma, is there's a
Yeah,
shame to it
yeah,
because people feel like, especially, okay, I can only talk from my perspective. So, especially as somebody who grew up in church and as a Christian, I think there's a lot there of shame, because there's this thing of, I think it's either you get people that believe either the thing of like, if you're Christian, everything should just be good and
yeah,
happy, and you should joyful and stuff, and you get the ones that like feel like you have to suffer always.
yeah,
So it's a balance in between. And the thing is, my shame was because I felt like, wow, how can I'm supposed to be most not joyful, and I mean, I'm in God and God is in me, and I'm singing as a worshiper, and I'm reading my Bible, and I know my verses out of my head. But I didn't have breakthrough, because the thing with God is that I had a very distorted belief of Him, a religious belief, and religion will definitely not set you free. So, like I was saying, it's not the embarrassed thing. It wasn't the outcast. It was the shame part, because of growing up in the church, growing up as a Christian. I think that I don't think I know that is where my shame was, because there's this thing with Christianity, and that people like see it as like it has to fix all your problems. And the thing is that I've learned in time is that when it comes to Christianity, it is that you have to find God for yourself. And what I mean by that, it doesn't mean you don't read the Bible, you don't talk to people or learn from them. It just means that when you read something, you have to, take it to God for yourself, because it's that relationship. So I thought I had a relationship with God, but I didn't. It was religion. It was just the acts of it. Knowing the Bible out of your head, there's no power to that unless you know God and the one who actually breathed that word. But if otherwise, it's just words. So I didn't know it at that time, and I think I didn't want to admit it to myself because I mean I felt like I was a good person. I was trying to do the right thing, be a good Christian for people as an example, whatever. But I was actually just like lying to myself and in denial of a lot of things that I had to face and I didn't want to face. So my shame was definitely, and that's the thing about shame. It's a hidden thing. Shame isn't
Mm.
the that's why this thing of like talking about mental illness and stuff, people don't want to talk about it because they hide it, and that shame actually distorts your viewpoint on life and of yourself. Because if you start talking about it and you bring it out into the light, um, it won't stay that it won't remain a shame thing, but it will be at first hard when you have to be brave enough to do it because people won't always understand, even if they've been through it. Like I've been through it, but if I have to deal with somebody else that's struggling with depression, it wasn't always the easy thing for me at first. I have grown now and are dealing with it in a different, better way. But at first it was hard. So it isn't the easy thing. And I think also sometimes it makes people feel if they deal with somebody maybe with a mental illness, it might trigger their own things that they struggle with. And because of their own hidden things and their own shame, they project it onto you, making you feel less because actually they feel now. Like it's, oh my word, it's surfacing things in them. So it is a quite a hard thing to do, but if you're a child of God, we actually created to face the hard things, and I didn't feel that at the time. I did believe that mentality of I'm supposed to just be happy and good, everything should be just great, and but then I was had the shame, and then I feel like this hypocrite. So it is just a cycle the whole time that imprisons you. But once you, like I say, start speaking about it, start just getting yourself, help, the resources, and trusting God because He really sent the right people. It's not about a lot of people. It's not about reading a lot of things and doing all. Just you just have to trust that inside of you to know, okay, do this now. Go to this person, maybe read up on this, and then that started helping me to get out of this cycle actually what it turned into the shame then turned into depression and then the guilt of it and all this condemnation. But yeah, at least at the end of the day, there was breakthrough, and now it's even more because the things are so intertwined in your life that sometimes you think you're over something and then a little thing pops up again and you realize, oh, it's still a bit rooted in there. So but yeah, shame is a big thing. It is, and it's a hard thing, for people to get over. It's not just a quick fix, and because it takes a lot of courage to get out of that.
True.
Yeah.
That's true. I believe it's you must be brave to be able to go through that. And one of the things you mentioned quickly was that you obviously grew up in the church, and for most people, I've heard it before that the church, some of the people, and I'm not saying the whole church, but some of the people believe it's demonic. You're filled with the demons. Um, what is your? Did you ever experience anything like that where people in the church would say something like that?
No, they
No.
didn't say that. I hear what you're coming from, where you come from, because I think, I'm sorry, I think a lot of Christians always just want to blame the devil for everything, and
Yeah,
not owe up to their part in things. And
that is
I
so
think when
true.
it comes to mental illness, it's past traumas of people, family before you, and their pains, and they don't deal with their pains, so they give their pains to their children. Their children don't deal with their pains, and just add it up. It's like it's adding up. Then it comes to, because there was depression in my family line, so it wasn't strange, it wasn't a new thing. It's almost like, okay, it's normal. So yeah, I didn't ever hear that towards me because it was in my family. So my family didn't see it as it's a demonic thing. But yeah, I know that's what people usually go towards, and that's also like shame, and the things that cause it even more shame. Because you
Yeah.
think like I'm a Christian, people say there's a demon in me, but on another note, there might be a demon in them, and they just want to focus on you.
And
It's,
we'll never
people
know.
see
Eh?
demons in everything is like sometimes it makes me question them because what are you hiding now that you're trying to like make this big scene about somebody else? And it's just a lot of shame. It's definitely, and I say this is the first conviction, not godly, and it's not God's love. If nothing, if it's, there can be correction and things. We can be straight with each other about things and be truthful. Because sometimes you have to be. I had to have somebody in my life that was straight with me because nobody was straight about stuff. So we always just patted and pied and didn't speak up when you shouldn't, all these things. So I needed somebody like that. And that is why God sent me my wonderful husband, who loved me enough to be honest with me. And it hurt me at first because I've never experienced somebody being so straight with me, but I needed it. And it wasn't just straight. He also had the gentle and the love part, but love isn't just, we just, because actually if he just left me, it would have killed me and totally consumed my life. So
Yeah.
certain things need to be said straightforward, but it shouldn't be a thing of bringing shame to somebody. If there's any shame to it, I'm sorry, I do not agree that it is God showing his love. Love can be hard and not nice to hear the truth, like when somebody's honest with me about something that isn't my life, but the way you say things. But if it comes from a thing of a making people feel even less, no, I would say stay away. Stay away from those people because that's not going to get you out. That's just more bondage coming your way. Yeah.
Definitely. Oh, that is very interesting. Thanks for sharing that. So tell me something. You've had all this. I mean, I can hear that you had a lot of support. You have a loving husband that also supports you, and you've gone for the help by the psychologist, and you did all that. Was there any point on your journey that you had to use medication? And if so, how did it feel? Did you stay long on it? Did you get off it? Um, yeah, what was the process if you did use medication?
Okay, so when I started using medicine at the end of 2011, and I used it for about a year. It wasn't a full year, but it was for about a year. So when I started using it, I really like it was good. And the doctor, I went to a normal doctor, a GP. I didn't go to a psychologist or anybody because they must also qualify to prescribe certain things. So then what was the irony is that the doctor I went to was the first time I saw him, and then he used to work in a institution, so
Okay.
he knew what questions to ask and things to know determine where am I and how bad is it and stuff like that. Like asking you most questions like have you ever had a plan was not to kill yourself or stuff like that. So it was, and then the first ones he prescribed for me worked immediately, which I was lucky because he said it might not because people are different. Some work for them, some don't. So then we'll try until we find one. But mine worked from the start. So I was on a mild dosage and stuff, and it really did help me. Like I said, balance me. I wasn't extremely going through emotions of extreme highs, extreme lows. I was really there in the middle. Um, and then it must have happened in a time period where my life was very bit chaotic. So this is amazing how that timing. I believe it was God using it as a tool to help me because I didn't know what I was going into for 2012 because then it was my father being diagnosed with cancer and going into interracial relationship, which bombed things up in my life, which definitely challenged me. But then I was on it and all was well. But because you're in this emotions, most now experiencing somebody that's dying from cancer, and going through these things of finding who you are and starting speaking up for myself, my emotions was hectic. Obviously there was days that it was even with the medicine, and then when I went to one day I was sick, not well, like 6 7 months maybe after I started using the antidepressants. When I went to the doctor, then it was a different doctor who helped me. Then it wasn't the same guy, it was a woman, and but she asked him because she saw it on my file I'm on antidepressants. And then that experience actually was the thing that turned it for me because when I experienced him at first, I felt like this person is, he's interested, he's asking the right questions, he wants to help. But then at second experience, he just looked at me and just they said, she should put me on the strongest antidepressants you get. And it should somehow be chronic. Like he didn't even ask questions again. He didn't go deeper. He just looks at me and I'm going through this emotional state. I do understand, Like when you would have looked at me, it must look like you're ashamed this person is going to kill herself or something like a mental state because I was losing my father and facing other things. And but that when I heard the word chronic, and it's the only way I can describe it, it's just something that switched in me because chronic means permanent, as far as I'm correct. And I just decided for myself that no, I don't want to be on it. I used it as a tool. It did help me, but I didn't want to be on it permanently. So, and also I don't blame him. I also realize he's just a person. He can't know and he can't choose for me. So he only did what he could, and from his perspective. But I had to choose myself. So I decided no, I'm not going to go on it. I didn't fill that script ever. And then the medicine that I was on, I actually asked Malette, she as a pharmacist sister, then I asked her, how can I gradually, in a good way, go off it? And then she gave me ideas, and I also kind of felt like God was leading me because He already gave me ideas before I even knew what is the way of going off meds, and then I went off it, and then obviously after that, going off it and it's working out of your system,
Yeah.
then I felt all the emotions and all the loss and things hectic, but I wanted to deal with it by being present. That was just my personal choice. Each person needs to know for themselves, what they need. So
Did
yeah.
you did you at all feel like you were not present when you were on the antidepressants?
Yes, I was definitely. There was times where it dazes you. It really does daze you. I mean, I was losing my dad and was watching this man dying, and it did bring emotion, but it wasn't to that full like extent of what the loss like that does, because obviously I was at daddy's school, that's why it was a very intense thing for me. But there would be days like it felt like I was normal, even the day he died. I was still on it, so the day he died, that was the most heartbreaking point for me, and it didn't you know numb me from feeling. I did feel, and it was intense, but it's almost like I almost like could go back to
So,
be just neutral, and then I just realized, but something isn't right for me. And then, like I say, when I had that encounter at the doctor's office, I just realized, I just said to myself, I think it's a spirit thing in me that just realized, I want to choose for myself now, because I was going into that period of my life, I making my own choices, finding my own voice, and now learning what is my own strength. And
yes.
that's why I just knew for myself now, because I knew if I'm going to stay on it, I might actually stay on it permanently, because there was times where I also used the sleeping tablet, and I would just drink it because I wanted to phase out. But I realized I couldn't go on with my life in a daze. I needed to face things no matter how badly it hurts, because at the end of the day, even though I went through that times and it was excruciating, that is just the honest truth. But I lived through it, and I got stronger through it. And that is, I think, what sometimes happens when we go on things. It is supposed to be a tool to help. So there shouldn't be any condemnation or shame to it. But we have to realize we're actually stronger than we give ourselves credit or think actually that's in us, because our spirit is way more resilient than we think. So yeah.
Yeah, no, that sounded quite intense, especially when you're going through a period of losing someone, and then deciding not to be on the medication, because that alone takes a lot of strength just to decide that, because you really got to face reality. And a lot of the times when you're on the medication, you feel like you're just in limbo, you're just there in the middle, but you're not feeling too excited, you're not feeling too low. So I get what you're saying. You felt that you needed to feel, in that moment, and really deal with it, deal with the issues. Um, but yeah, I mean, you've answered a lot of the questions. Some of the questions I want to ask you answered in between, so I'm not going to ask you those questions. What I want to know about you, what what lessons have you learned going through this journey, and what lessons would you like to share to our listeners or our viewers, to take away after watching this?
I would say one of the first things when I was thinking about that is to say to people, don't compare. Don't compare your journey to mine. Or like try to, yes, we can learn from each other, we can encourage each other, but each person's journey is really different and uniquely your journey. So some things that might work for you might not work for me, or vice versa. So don't compare, and then when you try it out and you see it doesn't work, you feel like there's something wrong with you. That's not the truth. You're supposed to walk your journey in your way. Sometimes that means you have to use medicine, you need extra help here, you need to read this kind of book. Like there's different things for different people, so don't compare. That is a main thing, because I did that, and then that just brings more shame and more condemnation on a person, which just keeps you in the cycle, and it just keeps you depressed the whole time, which is kind of the idea behind it. The other thing that I feel like I call it the upside of depression is that when I was in depression and struggling with it, I would have these moments where I'd be like, I want to go to the mall, I need to buy something. I get to the mall, I'm like, I want to go home, I don't want to be here, kind of thing. And I would walk through the mall and be like, all the shiny lights and all these things, it just says bye, bye, bye. And so for me, in that moment, when I look back on it, I realized that depression, the upside of depression is that it shows you, for me now, it shows you the reality of life. That, life can be shallow and fleeting, and the things that we chase
True.
doesn't have value to it.
Mm.
The more things you buy and all these things, it will not make you happy. I've done that also in my suppression years, where I would buy things to make myself feel happy. And then it lasts like 5 seconds, and then you just feel even worse because you spend money that you weren't supposed to spend. And, it's like a whole thing. So I would
Yeah.
say that is a big lesson I learned from it, that it shows you the reality of life. But then the other thing from it is that I just realized, well, then there must be a purpose for me, because otherwise, what is the point of living? And that only you can find in God. So I would say that another upside of my depression is that it did push me, even if I didn't have that relationship with God that I thought I had, that it was from a religious point of view, that eventually brought me to a real one with Him, where even now in my life, and I'm not struggling with depression now, but like there's some stuff that you just realize, but that's not authentic, that's not real, that this is a distorted view of God that I've had. So I need to get rid of it and start, seeing Him in a better, more real way, because my mind, the way I'm seeing Him, is clouding me and is blocking me from more and getting to know more and growing deeper. So that is definitely, because depression makes you think a lot. Yes, I know the negative of it is thinking about yourself in a negative way. So that's not the good thing about it, but it can, be turned around and be like, you think of things deeply, you do go into life, you question things. The the other side of me, like I could used to overthink too much. So I would say that to people also, don't overthink. Yes, go deep. Like as a writer, as a poet, definitely I do think about things deep in a way, but don't go so deep that it gives you headaches and it isolates you from people, because that's what it did for me. Then it's too serious. Things are too serious. So tips that I would give for people that maybe help without me is to not like take life too serious. Yes, life is filled with a lot of pain, a lot of unfairness, a lot of things that we can't fix ourselves as people, and then we get overwhelmed by it. Because that is also things that added to my depression, is that when I saw the suffering of people, whether it's through racism or sexism or all these ugly things of people being suppressed, it really made me feel so like, what can I do? I can't do anything. I'm just one person. And it overwhelmed me so much that definitely kept me more suppressed. And then I just no, I can't, that's not living. I can do only what I can do, instead of doing nothing. So I would say like like just it's not about. I think I went the other way. I was so serious, and then I didn't want to do anything serious. I didn't want to watch drama stuff. I didn't want to read real life stuff, because it's just so heavy, that I went to just comedy. And then obviously I married into the right family, because we
Good
laughed a
now.
lot. We can get serious about things and talk like real stuff and go deep, but we can also just like really God knew what I needed. Oh my word, the family I'm married into is like I needed that both sides kind of thing of like we can talk deep, we can go deep, but we can also just enjoy things and laugh
Oh,
about things. And I've never laughed as much since I met Kayla in my life. Um, so yeah, and the thing is, people, but like I say, please just don't do the compare thing and think you're falling short or there's something wrong with you if something doesn't work for you that might work for me. Be honest with yourself, but also look at the people you surround yourself with. That's a big thing because they're speaking into your life, they're speaking over your life. They might be struggling with issues that they don't deal with, so they're projecting that onto your life. And I know, family, blood is everything kind of thing, but if it is something that actually drags you down and makes you feel less than a person, sometimes you have to isolate and get away from that environment if you can. God really, that's the other person that helped me was Tisha when she opened her home to me, where I could and I lived with her for 4 years, and she really it just gave me a space where I could just be and find myself and be angry and go through all these emotions, but heal also. So definitely your environment has a big impact. But if you can't change your environment, because that's not always possible, start by looking at the things that you read, the things you take in, the things you really absorb, because all of it, and I really, that's the evidence I saw in my life, all of it impacts you. Words are powerful. The things that you believe about yourself, the things you speak of yourself, it's so powerful. It feels like nothing. It feels like, oh, it's a joke or it's nothing. But the more you say those negative things over yourself, it becomes you. And as somebody who's a writer who knows the power of words, I take my words seriously. I don't just put anything out there because I know my words have power. And the things so that is a big thing. It's the people you surround yourself, the things that you watch, you take in, you absorb, and then the things you speak over yourself and also over other people, because really that is the thing that it might sound so light or it might sound so, oh, it can't be that easy because we think words are easy, but it really is. There's a lot of things. I might not struggle with depression anymore, but there's a lot of things that's still in my head, that's still rooted that I have to about myself, that's negative and it's lies that God still is surfacing and working out of me. So that those are things. I hope I didn't ramble too much. I get it makes sense, but those are things I've seen for myself that I still have to practice by the things that I take in, the people I surround myself with, the things I say about myself, the way I am towards other people. And if somebody is not good for you or you're not good for somebody, just release it. Don't fight it. I know it's hard to let go, but there's so much freedom in letting go, and it gives you room to grow into who you're supposed to be. Because a lot of things, encounters and experiences and beliefs we have, all these wrong things about ourselves, it suppresses you, and because you're supposed to come out who you are designed to be, because you have purpose, you have power beyond your imagination. And I think things surface when you grow up because of people's pains and things, to suppress that, because you're supposed to make a difference in your way and the only way you can do it. So those are big things I had to overcome, but and I'm still growing in it. It's definitely not something you just, I'm over it, I'm done, I'm mature now. No, it takes time, but it's worth it.
but now you are a power woman. You are filled with, um, you are courageous and brave for going through what you've gone through and still standing today. Just for standing and moving on. So thank you so much for sharing your story, your journey with us, and it's really inspiring. And you are an inspiration to many others as well. So yeah, thank you so much for making time and for joining us. Okay,
Thank
so
you.
we'll
It's a
chat again
pleasure.
and have an awesome, awesome day today.
The same to you. Bye.
See you. Bye.